Da-dum, da-da-dum, da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-da-dum. What does that even mean, Bowers Game Corner?
Ahoy there, YouTube! I'm back again today for another game review, a special Kickstarter review. And today I'm very excited to check out Booze Barons from Overworld Games. This is for 3 to 9 players. It'll take about 25 to 45 minutes to play. I'd say it's for ages about 12, 13, and up. And in Booze Barons, it is a hidden identity deduction game where you're going to be taking control of some mobsters in the Prohibition era trying to collect certain types of booze. But be wary your other teams, because there are going to be 3 teams in this game. We're going to be trying to figure out what booze you're collecting and out you, snitch on you to the police. In the end, you're trying to gain a whole bunch of booze and not get outed. Sound intriguing? Let's open it up. Check it out. Alrighty then, we're going to take a look at what you're going to get inside of Booze Barons. Before we get started, I do want to mention this is the promotional copy in front of me, so take everything you see here with a grain of salt. So first and foremost, we got a handy-dandy rule booklet. It's 5 pages. I'm assuming it's going to be double-sided, full of colors, pictures, illustrations, all the stuff you like to see in a well-done rule booklet. And the game is pretty simple, so I could probably teach it to you right now, but thumbs up on the rule booklet. So in Booze Barons, what is going to happen is that you are going to be a mobster in the 1920s, and you're going to be on one of 3 teams, either the red team, the gray team, or the blue team. This is a team game, so as you guessed it, you're probably going to have other people on your team, depending on how many players you have, who are going to be collecting booze. You are also going to be collecting one specific type of booze. So you might have the Gatling whiskey, for instance, which means you're only going to pick up cards that have Gatling whiskey. But when you pick up these cards, other people are potentially going to be able to figure out who you are, which team you are, and what whiskey you're trying to collect. And if they do that, they can snitch on you, which will gain them points and also hinder you. None of this makes any sense to you right now, so let's get into the components and the gameplay. Trust me, it's actually pretty simple. So, first and foremost, when you first start the game, you're going to select one of the characters, one of the mobsters, and you're going to take the corresponding meeple right here, or the stand-up. So I'll just grab that so we can get the rest of the stuff out of the way. You're also going to get the corresponding player card, which is pretty useful. It's going to list all 12 of the different types of booze in the game, and also what you can do on your turn, because you're only going to take 1 action per turn, which makes things very, very simple, so we can get the rest of those out of the way. And last but not least, you're going to take your corresponding movement cards, and you're going to get 6 of these with your character's picture on them. So on these movement cards, there are going to be 6 different symbols. Hurrah! These symbols correspond to the 6 different locations you are going to have out. Now, there's only 6 locations in the game. However, they are double-sided. And what does it mean when they're double-sided? That means, well, of course, there's things on both sides, but there's special abilities on these locations that you can potentially trigger as an action. There's an A side and a B side. The A side is generally a little bit more simple, whereas the B side's a little bit more complicated. But if you're familiar with a lot of games, you can probably just go straight to the B side, even though I do recommend starting with the A side instead of the A, so just do that. Come on. So next, what you're going to get is you are going to get these 2 snitch cards up here, because as I mentioned, you are going to be able to snitch on people, and that is going to gain you points. Snitching on people is going to happen when you look at someone's cards and then you say, I think you are trying to get this type of booze. So for instance, for us, it would be Gatling whiskey. So if someone snitched on us and said, I think you were trying to get Gatling whiskey, then we would flip up our card, which would stink, and they would also get one of our location cards, which would also stink, and they would gain points, and we would lose points. Various other different things like that, but we'll get more into that in a minute. Next, we have our little Booze Baron card, which serves as a first player marker. And then last but not least, you are going to have these booze cards on them. So the booze cards are going to have 2 main things you need to pay attention to on them. There's going to be the location where they are going to spawn, and then also what kind of booze are on there, because you're only going to be able to collect cards that have your particular type of booze on there. Not color, but actual symbol. So for instance, this Gatling whiskey, I could not collect this card because it does not have my symbol on it, whereas I could get this card right here because it has the Gatling whiskey right there. This is all still clear as mud, but we'll walk you through a mock turn and you'll see exactly what's going on. So when you first start the game, you're going to deal out 9 cards out here, and it's alright if they're not even, so as you can see, there's nothing at the Officers Club. Someone still might go there, and I'll tell you about that in a second. And each person is also going to get one of these types of booze. And the way it's dealt out is essentially if you have 3, 6, or 9, you're going to have exactly the same number of people on each team. So in a 9-player game, you just have 3 teams of 3, 6-player game, 3 teams of 2, so on and so forth. And when you play any of the other numbers, how it works is there's going to be either 1 or 2 teams that have less players on them, but you're not going to know which teams those are when you first start out. Also, there's some differences in scoring and whatnot, where, for instance, if you played a 5-player game, then whoever was on their own team, their score would be doubled at the end of the game. So it kind of tries to balance that out. So you're going to pick the Booze Baron. That would go to whoever the first player is, and then you're going to go ahead and you're going to take your movement action. Now, your movement action is going to have you looking at your 6 cards right here, and then secretly, face down, laying whichever card it is that you want to go to. So, for instance, we might lay down... Actually, let's look. We have our Gatling Whiskey, which is what we're trying to collect. So, obviously, we probably want to go to a place that has Gatling Whiskey, and the only place we can get that is the docks right there. So, we would most likely lay down our docks card right here. We're all going to lay down face down, everyone playing the game, and reveal at the same time. Once everyone's revealed, you're going to then move your token to the corresponding location. So we'll just kind of randomize this and do that, so on and so forth. Now, once everyone has got to the locations, you're going to have 3 actions that you can take. So the first one you can do is that you can pass. No one really does that too terribly often, so we're really not going to talk about it. The next thing you can do is you can do the event listed on your card. So let's take a look at one of the events. For instance, at the Curtain Club, tail the player seated to your left. That's a terrible example because we're going to get to tailing in a second, but you could do that action and you could tail someone, and I'll tell you what tailing is in a second. The next action you can take right here is to deliver. That means you're going to take one of the cards that is at that location. So you can only take a card if it has your symbol on it. So if I was going first, I might take this Gatling Whiskey right here. And I would put that face up in front of me for the time being. Then my turn would be completely over. That's how it is. Simple it is. You take one action. Now the final action you can do is that you can tail someone. When you tail someone, what's going to happen is you are going to be able to look at all of their cards. Because this is face up right now, but next round it's going to go face down. So let's just say I have, it's a perfect example. Let's just say I have this one face up, this one face down, and it gets to the yellow person's turn, and they either have the option that they can take this card if it's going to help them. They can do the option on, you can do the option, the card action, and then you can try and tail someone. So that yellow guy might say, you know what, I'm going to try and tail the blue guy, so he is going to have 20 seconds to look at both of my cards, and then he's going to have a decision to make. So he might look at my cards, and let's see what he sees. All right, so I'm not Muscle Out Stout, because there's only one of those. I'm not this, because there's only one. I'm not this. Oh, there it is. So he would now immediately know that I'm either Gatling Whiskey or Hotsy Totsy Port. So if he were on the brown team, he immediately knows that I'm not on his team, whereas if he were on red or blue, he would not have full information. So now his choices are, he can either take one of these cards from me, which he can only do if he has that symbol. So let's just pretend that he is this guy right here. He's red, so he could not take either of these cards. The next option is that he could try and out me. He could snitch on me to the police. Now, if he gets this correct, then that's bad. Bad for me, in particular, for a couple reasons. First, he would take this card from me, which means that's going to be -2 points and +2 points for him, unless he is on the red team. So we're in this example, he is on the red team. So most likely, he would probably guess for the blue one right down here, because if he got this one right, that would actually be bad for the red team. So his 2 options are to either steal one of my cards, if he can take it, or try and out me. And if he outs me, that means I immediately, if he's correct, I would immediately flip my card up. I would lose this card to him, and that's going to be points for him at the end of the game. So yes, that's what's going to be happening when you do that. So those are your 3 options that you have on your turn. You can either gain a card that is face down there, or face up there. You can tail someone, which is trying to see who they are, potentially steal something from them, or snitch on them. Or you can trigger the event at your location. Now there are 2 snitch cards here, but the way it works is if you're playing with 6 players or less, the first person to do it gets a snitch card, and I think that's 1 victory point at the end of the game. And then if you're playing with 7 or more, then you have 2 snitch cards out there. But anywho, after you're done with that, you're going to reveal more of these cards, and it's half rounded up, I do believe. So in a 9-player game, you reveal 5 new cards and put them out wherever they would go. So like these 2 blue ones would go down here. Everyone's going to collect their pawns back up. The Booze Baron is going to move 1 spot to the left, and then you're going to rinse, wash, and repeat. Now the game is eventually going to end when there is only 1 person left who has not been outed. Once that happens, you're going to tally up your points. So you'll get 1 point for each of the delivery cards that you have collected. You're going to get 1 point for each snitch card that you collected, and there's going to be very few of those to even gain, so that's normally not a big deal. You're going to get +2 for each movement card that you have, both from you and also from other gangs, because you are going to be able to take other gangs' movement cards, as we said, if you correctly out someone. And then you're also going to get -2 coins for each movement card acquired from a teammate. So as we mentioned in the below example, if that red guy had outed the other red guy, that would be -2 points, which would be really, really bad. You're going to tally up with you and your teammates, and whoever has the most points is going to be the winner of the game. If there's a tie, whoever has the most snitch cards is going to be, or no, excuse me, not the most snitch cards. Whoever is the one person who is remaining is going to be the winner of the game. Almost forgot, one more important rule is that you can't go to a location twice in a row. So let's go back to the original example that we had where I went to the docks the first time where I got this Gatling whiskey. We'd go on to the next round, and this Gatling whiskey would now go face down so no one could see it. And then I would now have to play one of my 5 other cards. And then after I played that, I could then pick this card up. And so you're never going to be able to play the same location twice, which in particular, if you get outed, is going to be very, very difficult because you're going to be dealing with one less card. So you might only have 4 cards to deal with at a time. But that, in a nutshell, is how Booze Barons is played. Alright then, Booze Barons from Overworld Games, one of my final thoughts. For the pros, let's go over the cons. First, on the con side, the game's not going to be for everybody. There's a couple different reasons why. This is a larger group game. Now, you can play 3 to 9 players, but I don't particularly recommend the game at 3, 4, or 5 players, especially 3 players. But once you hit 6, 7, 8, 9, that's a different story. We'll talk about that in the pros. Next, the game has some elements of memorizations, which some people really, really hate. Now, it's not a huge aspect of the game, and if you have a terrible memory, it does not mean you are by any way that far behind everyone else. It's just going to help you out slightly if you have a good memory, and you can kind of remember what other people have when they go face up. Another comment some people are going to have with the game is that it is a family weight game, but the theme is about booze. I personally think you can use it as a history lesson, but it is something to be forewarned about because it definitely is family weight. You can definitely play this with some 8, 9, 10-year-olds. I think they can figure this out no problem, but take that for what you will. Another comment I had for the game is that I wish it was just a little bit more gamey. I think that would really elevate this game. Like, I'm going to tell you right now, I enjoy this game, and I'm recommending this game, but if it just had a little bit more gaminess to it, I could highly recommend this one. And what do I mean by that? I think the best example would be when you tail someone. When you tail someone and you figure out who they are. And I tried doing this. I tried playing it slow, and I looked at their cards, and it was very obvious who they were. It was very obvious that they were not on my team, and I still decided to not out them. And I did it in a very blatant way. I actually said it kind of booze. They didn't have on any 3 of their cards, and then I winked at them when no one was looking, and they thought I was on their team. I was in their confidence for a good chunk of the game. And later on in the game, I realized, and I thought about it more after that, there is no reason at all why you would ever do that. It kind of restricts your decisions, and I wish there was a reason why, that you could bluff and slow play a little bit more, but in this game there really is not. You gain points, you potentially gain even snitch points if you out somebody, and it helps your team drastically, but I wish you had that option. So yeah, that was one complaint that I did have. Any other cons with the game? It is on the lighter side. It is a gamey game still. I put it on maybe the same weight as Resistance or something like that. Perhaps it's actually probably a little bit heavier, but it is still on the lighter side. Moving on to the pros, I enjoyed Booze Barons, and I'll put it this simply. If you routinely hit 6, 7, 8, 9 players, and you're looking for a gamier game than like your apples to apples, Cards Against Humanity, Say Anything, stuff like that, then absolutely go ahead and back Booze Barons. It is a good deal of fun, and there's a couple main reasons why I can highly recommend this game. First and foremost, it is simple to learn and simple to teach. My middle part was a little bit meandering, but trust me, as you can see, you only take 1 action per turn. You play a movement card, and then you take an action, and it's very, very simple. The tailing is very simple. All the actions on the different locations are very simple to understand on both side A and side B. be, which is a good thing. The iconography is very nice. The added player cards, which that's not one of them, really help things. The artwork is nice and appealing. I think the theme lends itself very nice to gateway gaming. I feel like this is a game that you could absolutely introduce to non-gamers. And while they may have a couple questions here or there, it's not too hard to grasp the concepts of the game. So I would put this definitely as something that you could bust out on a party night or something like that if it's earlier in the night and people have been drinking too much. What else do I like about the game? I like the team aspect of that, and I like that this game actually feels unique from other hidden identity and deduction games, because there's a lot of those games out there, and most of them have generally 2 teams on them. Like the Resistance or Coup with the expansion normally has 2 teams with it. I like the fact that there's actually 3 teams in this. And I would love it if there was an expansion one day that added another team. Because I liked that feeling of knowing that there are people on my team that have my back. Granted, there's not too terribly much they can do, but there are some things that they can do that can help me out. And I like that an awful lot. And, I love that moment when you're tailing somebody, you're like, oh yeah, and then you're like, oh, he's on my team. And it's like, ah, dang, I was about to out you, but you're on my team. But then you still know that valuable information, and I like that quite a bit. I like the mechanisms in the game. I like the artwork in the game. I like the fact the game feels different. It's just a solid game from top to bottom, as long as you're playing 6 to 9 players, in my opinion. So, if that sounds like it might be something for you, be sure to check out Booze Barons on Kickstarter. I'll post the Kickstarter link down below. Be sure to check it out. Tell them Bowers Game Corner sent you. If you enjoyed this review, please be sure to click on the subscribe button down below. And in the comments below, let me know what is your favorite kind of booze. For me personally, I gotta go with apple pie. It just tastes so good and it gets you drunk so fast. But man, it's gotten me in a lot of trouble in my life. But what is your favorite kind of booze? Post in the comments below. And as always, thanks for your time, YouTube.
That was a review for Booze Barons. For more reviews and previews, check back at Bowers Game Corner.